thank you for taking some time out of your evening to join us for C3. I think you're going to really enjoy the conversation that I had with Bruce Osborne around the subject of personal finances. I think that it will be helpful to you and encouraging to you, and I thank you so much for joining us. But before we jump into that conversation, I do want to let you know about the conversation we're going to have next week. As you know, the reality of racism has once again reared its ugly head in our culture, and it's time for us to have a conversation around this reality as a church. So next week at C3, I'm thrilled to have some incredible guests who are going to share some of their personal stories around the reality of racism, and we're going to have an honest, real, raw conversation about what we can do both as individuals and as followers of Christ, what we can do to be part of the solution, not perpetuate the problem. So I want to invite you to join us once again next week on June 10th for C3 as we talk about the reality of racism and again what we can do to reflect that all lives matter. Black lives matter, and they all matter to God because each one of us was created in the image of God. And the scriptures teach us that the way that we love people who we can see, all people, the way that we love our neighbors, the way that we love people who we can see is what best demonstrates, what best reflects the way we love God whom we can't see. So I hope that you'll join us for that conversation. I think it's going to be incredibly powerful, and more than that, it's incredibly important. So I hope that you'll be there next week for C3. Until then, enjoy the conversation with Bruce. Hey everybody, welcome to C3. We're so thankful that you could take some time out of your evening to join us. I'm here, I've got some coffee. Even though it's in the evening, it's never too late to have some good coffee. But I am on the line here with my good friend Bruce Osborne, and Bruce is a member of the Bridge Church, and he's actually, I don't know if you remember this, Bruce, but you are one of the first people that I met when I moved to Canada, and one of the first people I met when I actually attended the Bridge, because your wife Susan knew that Lisa was talking to some guy from up north, and when I came into the church, Susan came over to scout me out, and she brought you brought you with her, the little covert op, and so yeah, you were probably, if not the second, you were pretty close to the second person I met. So
Wow.
history, man. So Bruce is a member, not only member of the church, but he also serves on the finance team of the church. And Bruce, how long have you been serving in that capacity? It's been quite a while, right?
I think I'm in my fourth year, but I don't track. I don't know. Yesterday, last year, 5 years ago. Honestly, I think it's been 4 years now. Could be 5.
Done so fantastically. And so the reason I bring that up is because during this call today, we're going to be talking a lot about finances, not because it's a fun subject to talk about. Well, maybe it is for some people, but it's certainly an important subject to talk about. And so we know that in today's present reality, finances and the pressures and the stresses of finances are even heightened more so than on a normal day or a normal month or even a normal year. But we recognize, Bruce and I both, that finances are a big issue. There's something that we all navigate and wrestle with, and all of us have, financial issues in some way, shape, or form. And so we wanted to take some time and just kind of have a conversation about that. But also, we've got some exciting things that we want to invite you to at the end of this conversation. But before we jump in, before we just kind of put both of our checkbooks out on the counter, Bruce, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your experiences, your history as it relates to finances, and why you are so passionate about the subject?
Well, first off, a little bit about myself. I've been attending the Bridge Church now for 20 years. Susan may be more accurate on the timing than me. Again, goes back to I don't know. Whatever.
Who counts anymore, right?
Who counts anymore? Been married, coming into my 35th year.
Congrats,
Yeah.
man. That's
yeah. I keep on hearing people say, "Well, been married 10 years," and everybody applauds. And I'm like, hey, we know folks that are into their 50th and 60th year of marriage, and that's certainly a goal, right? And it's hard work, and a lot of it is about communicating about finances, because it's certainly one of those subjects that breaks down marriages. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to understand a little bit more. I was terrible with money. Nobody ever explained money to me. I didn't understand that God had a greater purpose for money. And so I've been on this journey to to learn because I was just useless with
Yeah,
it.
I'm the same way.
Yeah,
I'm the same way, man.
I didn't understand it. I didn't get it. And then I, I started learning and I went, oh my goodness, I had no idea. This is really cool.
Yeah. So what was the thing that like, what was the catalyst for that kind of revelation? Like, I don't know any, like, did something happen or was it just kind of one of those, I tried to buy something and the money's gone, or what was it that sparked
Well,
that?
well, Susan was previously married. And so when we came into our initial marriage, I was a little bit younger. And she already had her family. She had her kids. She had her house, and we were separate. And we didn't discuss finances. I paid my bills. She paid her bills, and we were separate. We weren't one. We weren't as one in that area. And we turned around one day, looked at each other, and said, "Oh my goodness, we owe an awful lot of money. How did that happen?" We had. I'm in my 20s and I'm looking at this going, I'm a fool. I'm an idiot. What in the world happened? And we were drowning. And so we set forth a plan. We paid that all off and tried desperately never to go back into that situation ever again, because it was it was consuming.
Yeah.
It took away so much from your life.
What would you say? Like, I can relate to that, first of all, closely, but like, what would you say, like, you lost in that season where you guys were doing your own thing, if you will, like financially, and like, what did you lose in your relationship during that time?
I think intimacy. If I remember, again, it's going back, I had more hair and
you had more hair. Buddy.
Well, I'm covering up the top, Scott.
Yeah, whatever. I don't even want to talk about it.
I'm very connected to my hair. It's very attached to me.
Yeah, me too.
It means a lot. Yeah, it was. I think it was intimacy, and I think there was always that tension. And you spent what, you did what. There was those conversations, and trust, and it was about communication. I think in the end, that really wasn't there.
Yeah. Well, and the reason I say that I can relate to that, for personally, like I definitely had very similar experiences to you, other than the hair. What I had to let that go a long time ago, but in terms of the finances, like, I didn't grow up learning, about money. I think my mom tried to teach me the importance of saving, but I think as a kid, I was more focused on fitting in and finding, the value in the things that I could get, or the things that I had, or, and so I really, developed some really bad habits because of that. And then, it wasn't a big deal when I had, when we were only talking hundreds of dollars. But then when I got out of school and started making more money than I'd ever thought I'd ever make, which wasn't a lot in ministry, but more than I'd ever made up until that point, like, those bad habits carried over, and then we were talking thousands of dollars.
Right.
And
it's you fall into the lies of society. It's just a payment. It's not that expensive. Buy it now, pay for it later.
Right.
You end up making more, but having less.
Yeah. And you do pay for it later, just not in the ways that you thought. Right. I mean, I think there's definitely some areas in my life where I've paid for it and they're not financial. So that's one of the reasons I know we share that same passion. And so, you did it, forgive me if I'm wrong, but Bruce, over the years, like, you've done a number of different business ventures and a bunch of different things that have kind of led you along through your life, but now you're doing something completely different. Is that a fair assessment? Like, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I've always said, Scott, that I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. And
coming from the guy who's surrounded by comic books in his office. Yeah.
So I I sort of came into a certain line of consulting work in IT, and that's held me employment wise, but it wasn't a passion. And so now I've been trying to pursue purpose, more purpose in my life. What is it that brings me meaning and value? I have owned businesses with my wife. I have everything from shoe stores to leather repair to cosmetic distribution companies to landscaping. Yeah, so I've gone on quite an independent journey trying to find my way in this world and do what I thought I was being led to do, and taking on the next exciting best thing, and always falling short. And it usually stemmed around the same: not having a plan, not managing what I had well, and I was still searching for more.
Yeah. Speaking of that, Bruce, one of the what came to my mind as you're talking about that was I've always been amazed by people like you who have that, a lot of different experiences and, entrepreneurial mindset, and go out and do something and figure something out and have a dream. But as you were telling that little portion there, one of the things that just jumped into my mind was one of the times we sat over coffee and you were talking about, finding your purpose and finding your value. And you told me, if I can throw you under the bus here, you told me about a time where you found value in your car. And I wonder, like,
Yeah.
if you could talk a little bit about that, because that was, I think that really revealed a lot about your journey and
Yeah.
where you are now. I wonder if you'd share.
Yeah. So that stems right back to my childhood, and we all have messages we've heard in our life, and we've all experienced things. We've all been embarrassed. We've all had that moment of falling in the mud and having the kids laugh at us, or ripping our pants, or something that has scarred us.
Yeah. Like
Right.
wearing a tutu when you preach.
Well, that was by choice. That
think
was
so,
not,
do you?
that was by choice, and we're going to have another lengthy conversation
Yeah,
about it later,
probably.
but completely different subject. So, to me, I kept on seeing and hearing in the world that I was in, and grew up in an era of muscle cars, right? And it was those whispers of, "Oh, dude, look at that guy's car. He's so cool. He has it all. He's so cool. Look at that. He's just the coolest dude." And so I grew up with this perspective that if you don't have a nice car, you're not accepted, and you're not cool, and you don't have it all. And so there was a day when and I was always driving used cars, and I was driving old used cars, because if I couldn't pay $500 for my car, I wasn't buying the car. And I paid cash, and I remember sitting in a parking lot after a failed job interview, and my car wouldn't start. And I remember just screaming at God and pounding on the steering wheel and vowing that I would never drive a crappy car ever again once I got a job.
Yeah.
And I was in my 20s, and I made this vow. And so for me, cars became a symbol of success. It became a symbol of value, of purpose, of achieving something in your life. You drove a nice car, you must be important. So I had my share of Cadillacs, Lincolns, and so on collectively. And I found myself, if I could finish the story, healing myself out of that by driving one of my cars, realizing what I have done to myself, and then vowing to keep this car for as long as I possibly could. Scratches, rust, dings on it. I was hit in a parking lot by a kid with a grocery cart, and I said, I'm leaving it. I want to stare at that imperfection in my car until I can accept that I am not measured by the scratches in my car, but I'm measured as the quality of the person that I am in my life. And it was life-changing. And it took me 3 years to heal. I had to stare at that ugly car with those 17 scratch marks across my bumper for 3 years to heal myself of this belief that the car made me.
Yeah. That's a powerful story, because I think, one of the things we've talked about many times is, like, we've said what Jesus said about money and how he taught so much about money, and the church shouldn't talk about money, and our response is, well, Jesus talked about money more than anything. But that's a great example of why, right? Like the money isn't really the issue. It's what the money is connected to, which is what's most important, which is
Right.
your heart, right?
Right.
And so that journey was about your heart. It wasn't about the car or the money that was connected to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So now if we could kind of fast forward a little bit, you're not in your 20s anymore, and you've been married for, you said 35 years.
Yeah.
Right? And you've done a lot of different things. You've seen a lot of different things, but somewhere along the way, you're talking about purpose and meaning. Like you began a shift where you began financially, coaching people. And you and that had a number of different iterations, but talk a little bit about that shift and how that happened and why it happened and kind of where it leaves you today.
It started with Crown. We took the Crown financial course, Susan and I, as something we wanted to do together. We took this course. We enjoyed it. We wanted to become facilitators of it, so we took the facilitators training course, and we started leading Crown classes once, sometimes twice a year at the Bridge for almost 10 years. And that started giving me my foundation into God's plan for my for my resources, for my family, for myself, and just how this big plan is intended to be and what it's supposed to look like. But I felt something was still missing, and I was starting to feel it's not complete. I would follow up with a lot of people in the course. I'd ask them how things are going. I even started a newsletter. I was mailing newsletters out quarterly, trying to encourage people to stay connected. And then I'd follow up personally with them. And I was like, oh yeah, I completely forgot about that. Oh yeah, we had this situation happen, and I blah. Oh yeah, that was just a course we took. I didn't. It was going nowhere, and it was lacking so much. When I found More Than Enough Financial Fitness, and I went through their coaching model, and I met with David Van Noppen, and we sat down, and he shared with me the difference of a coaching model and what it does, and it brings accountability. It brings a one-on-one relationship. It brings a convergence when you're working, so Scott and I, you and I could meet, and each and every week we're going to discuss your spending. Why did you make that choice? What's the impact that choice is going to have? And suddenly you have a communication that you start to have, and you're encouraged to have the same communication with your spouse if you're
Right.
married. And it started to change that whole dynamic of what having a plan meant, not a budget, but what having a plan meant, and how to work on getting out of debt plan, and how to work on maintaining and working within a spending plan that was perfect for your household, that was work for your household, and what changes do you then need to make. And it again brought me to a whole other level of understanding, and it's only been in the last few years of spending to a plan. So you can save, you can pay off debt, and you can still go to the movies, and you can still have the dinner date if it's part of the plan.
Mm-hmm. So
go
ahead.
Yeah, and you can do that guilt-free.
Right. Guilt-free. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I guess my question in hearing all that, and I've wondered this, I think, many times, but I've never asked you. So this is the first time I've ever asked you this. But you get nothing out of that, right? Like as a coach, as someone who does what you do and invests the time and the energy, like you mentioned, like, following up with people and doing this and doing that, like you really don't get anything out of that. So why do you do it?
When somebody has come up to me in the hallway of the church, and true story, and said, thank you. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be in the position I'm in today, and meaning that in a good way. And then they would go on to further in what that meant. It brings a depth of satisfaction to the time that you're using while you're on this earth. And again, I've been seeking for purpose in my life. And it doesn't have to do with money. Money's great. I love money. I have hobbies. Um,
Hey,
I like money. But it was meaningful, and it brings such a depth of satisfaction. Um, One of my giftings, one of my wife's giftings, is in service. We love to serve. We love to host people at our house for dinner. We love to make sure they walk out of there and feel like they were the most important people in the house. And it brings us satisfaction to be able to do that. And it's a gifting that I believe I have in serving others, because it brings a depth of satisfaction that I cannot explain any differently than that.
yep. No, I get that, and I've definitely seen you, both of you, model that here at the church for sure. Like, you're oftentimes the first people there. Oftentimes you've been the last to leave, first to step up and do something. In many cases, to a fault. Just that willingness to serve, and so I definitely see that. And I think for me, one of the things, if I could just tell everybody who's watching this, one of the reasons I'm so excited about this conversation and where it's going is because, on the flip side, for me, I've been in, and I've talked about this from the stage, where in 20 years of ministry, and Alan, echoed this, in over 40 years of ministry for him, over 50% of our collective one-on-one or couples conversation has been financially focused. Like, and people I've met, from everybody from people who I could have maybe thought, yeah, I could see that being a problem for them, to other people that I was shocked to find out that they were having the type of struggles they were having financially. Either way, it left me in a position where I would be sitting in the room and listening to the heartache, listening to the desperation, and really not feeling like in that moment that I had the gifting to be able to speak to it. In some ways, I knew that God has a plan for our finances. I could quickly say what that is. But in terms of having the expertise and the gift mix to actually be able to help them, never really felt like I was the right person to be in on that conversation. And so what I wanted to do was be able to connect them to someone, or connect them to an opportunity that would actually help them. And so that's why, I'm thankful, Bruce, that you and I have connected and have a similar passion, but maybe different expertise or different giftings. And so, how long has it been since we did the financial learning experience? Because all the days bleed together now. Has it been,
October?
how long has it been?
It was October.
It was October. Okay. So in October, we did a financial learning experience. It was on a Saturday morning, and we had a tremendous response. Phenomenal response, where people, showed up, and Bruce led a couple-hour session and just talked about a number of different things. And it was incredible. And we kind of had this idea, this dream of, offering that consistently at the church. And then COVID-19 hit and kind of derailed our plan as to when we were going to do that. And so we've kind of put it off. But now, again, just hearing how so many people are impacted financially, which only heightens the stress they might have already been feeling financially for a variety of reasons. Now it's maybe even more so. So we're thankful now that we're going to provide this financial learning experience again, but it's going to look a little bit different than it did back in October. So Bruce, why don't you share just a little bit about what the session is, what its purpose is, and what it's going to look like in our current context?
Absolutely. The basic ideas, the basic principles are still the same. There's been a reformatting. So listening to just my own sort of sense, conversations with Scott, with yourself, Scott, conversations with others that attended, and just what was good, what was bad, what would you like to see, what do you need, where are you at, what is it you're looking for? And so to personalize something within a church itself, we said, okay, let's take the basic concepts. Let's deal with how to get out of debt. What's the plan? Let's deal with how to make a spending plan. Some will call it a budget. I call it a spending plan. We have to spend. If you can learn to spend to a plan, so let's figure out what that plan looks like. And we'll do that together. What about giving and saving? Where do we give and save throughout all of this? What does that look like?
Sure.
Where does that fit into the big picture? Right. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then, really, how did we get into that situation is not as important, but what were some of those triggers? What were some of those things that we need to start breaking down and believing and changing in our own life and working? It's a packed 2 hours, but I believe we can cover all of that off.
Yeah, it was, just to kind of affirm the previous one in October, like I thought it was incredible. I was there and I learned a lot. There were, I think what was really awesome about that experience was you saw so many different people at so many different stages of life in the room. And I think it takes, one of the things that this current reality gives us is it takes a little bit of the, the fear element out of it. It's like, man, if I show up to that thing, everybody's going to think, or everybody's going to know, or everybody's going to see that maybe I'm struggling financially. And I don't want people to know that. That's a personal thing. So, but the truth is, like, we all struggle with it. Some are just maybe more honest about it or willing to be honest about it than others, right? I think everybody's got financial issues in one way, shape, or form, because the truth is we all have heart issues. And
Right.
that's really the issue. So one of the things that we want you to know is that we are putting on this seminar on June 9th. And we're going to be doing it digitally, of course. We long for the day where we can do it again in a physical sense. But until then, we're going to provide it in a digital way. And so you can go to bridgechurches.ca/live on Tuesday, June 9th. At 7:00, and Bruce will be there, and he'll be going through this seminar. And when you register, what we want you to do is go to bridgechurches.ca/events. And if you go to that page, you can register for the event, and then you'll get an email that will provide you a PDF booklet that you'll need to have on hand for the session. It's free, of course. We certainly don't want you to go into debt trying to get some financial coaching. But this is 2 hours that are well worth your time. And I think that they can have the impact on not just your finances, but on your heart, that will lay an incredible foundation. Because the truth is, the way you handle your money doesn't just affect you. It affects you. It affects your spouse if you're married. It affects your kids. It's going to affect your grandkids and their kids. It goes from generation to generation. So what you do now will echo for generations with your finances because of what it will do for your heart. And I know that Bruce and I share that passion. So Bruce, really quickly, before I let you go, before your coffee gets cold, when people show up to this 2-hour-ish session, what is it that they can expect? Not just the topic, but in terms of the way that it will go. Like, what can they expect in that 2 hours?
Well, I certainly hope that they can expect that they'll understand what a spending plan is, understand that there's hope. It's not too late. That we need to talk about these things. We need to finally say, you know what? Something has to change. And it has to start now. And what I'm saying to you is it's not too late to start now. I have clients that are in their 70s. I have clients that are in their late 50s, and I have clients that are in their 20s. And as grateful as I am for those that are in their 20s, I'm more passionate about those that have let a lot of years go by and have circumstances that have happened to them, have their own bad choices, have whatever it is, it doesn't matter, where they've had some setbacks. It's not too late. And that's exciting for me to be able to share. And just being able to show that there's hope. We may not have immediate freedom, but we're certainly having hope.
Right. And you've seen, and I think what's so amazing is as a result of the coaching that you've done, like you've seen so many success stories where people who had no hope actually saw, if I just stick to this plan, like there's a window of freedom, of living in, as you say, living in that place of more than enough. Like it's on the horizon. I just need the guidance, and I need to stick to the plan. It's not just hearing it and going, oh, that's great. I wish, that would be cool. But I actually have to do something, but they can discover what to do in that time, which is pretty amazing.
And it's a start, and it may take you 4, 5, 7 years to reverse the situation that you're in. So understand that it's not a quick fix. It's not going to happen immediately, but that's part of the discussion.
Yeah. Well, if you're watching, I really hope that you'll consider taking some time out of your Tuesday evening. I think it's an investment that will really have tremendous effects, both on your pocketbook and your heart. I think it'll change the way that you view money. I think it'll help you look in the mirror and change the way you see yourself, and not finding your value in the things that you have or the things that you can't even afford, that you tell yourself you can. But it will also change the way that, the kinds of things that you want to enjoy guilt-free, you actually can. And there's no condemnation, right? I think, Bruce, too, one of the things we talked about before is everybody has hobbies. Everybody has things that they enjoy. And it's not about suspending those things. It's not about, saying, oh, you shouldn't enjoy that, or why would you do that? It's really about having the freedom to do those things without the guilt or the stress, because I'm doing this even though I know I can't afford it. Right?
Yeah. And maybe those hard decisions may have to be made. I don't know the circumstances, right? But at least then you'll have the information and you'll be able to make informed decisions.
Right. Yeah. One of the things I love about Bruce, and he's said it many, many times to me personally, and also I heard him say it in the seminar, is his job or his desire is not to tell you what to spend. It's to help give you the information that you make the choice, but you know the questions to ask yourself as to why do I feel the need to do this? And is it worth it now? And those type of things. So again, this isn't a critical thing. This isn't a condemning or judgmental thing. This is an information thing to help you be who and where you want to be in life, and not feel the guilt or the stress that so many of us experience and associate with money. And again, as a church, we don't want to just view things as, there's spiritual things, there's relational things, there's financial things. Everything is spiritual. Everything is spiritual, and finances are a big part of who we are. And we felt the need as a church to speak into it and to give you information that's helpful. So for the last time, I want to encourage you to go to bridgechurches.ca/events and sign up for the financial learning experience. It's happening on Tuesday, June 9th at 7:00. It's a free seminar. It's 2 hours that are well worth your time. You'll get a PDF document in your email to have on hand for the evening. And we will be doing these more frequently now that we're going to try to figure out how to do it digitally until we can do it again physically. So if for some reason or another you can't make this one, please stay tuned for others that will come your way. But again, let's be real. Whatever's on Netflix, it's going to be on Netflix on Wednesday night, so it can wait. So why don't you take 2 hours out of your Netflix schedule and join us Tuesday evening at 7:00. We think it'll be well worth it. Bruce, do you have any other comments you want to say before I let you get off? Or
No, Scott, just thanks very much, and for having a forum, but doing this within the church, openly and freely, and just giving opportunities to others that could benefit from it. So I'm really grateful to be a part of the Bridge. I'm really grateful to be a part of something like this that can be so beneficial for me as well. Because quite frankly, the more I talk about it, the more I remind myself the things I'm supposed to live by, because I'm not perfect and I need the support. So.
Absolutely. Both of us. No, that's no more truth than that. Well, listen, we're going to let you go and get on to your evening. Thanks so much for taking some time to be with us. One of the things we'd love for you to do is, if you're watching this, obviously we want you to be there. But if you want to share this link and share this video as an invitation to someone, please do so. Drop it in their email, share it on Facebook, send them a text message and just say, hey, you might be interested in this. Again, the great thing about this digital age is that there really removes the fear of walking into a room and everybody going, oh man, I had no idea they were struggling financially. This is something that you can sit in your PJs on your couch and watch and learn and discover. And again, we believe with all of our hearts that it will help you be the person that you want to be, and will help you live the story that one day you'll tell. So we hope to see you Tuesday evening. And until then, much love and God bless.
Thanks.